That is perfect, thank you. Hello everybody and welcome to November's Integrated Joint Board Audit Risk and Scrutiny Committee. Before we get started, I just want to formally welcome Jamie Kinlochen and Kath Kinney, our new NHS members. It won't feel like a new meeting for the review given the amount of audit things you've done this week and also your attendance at previous meetings, but your attendance here is appreciated. This is a really important function of the organisation, so we're happy that you're here. So just moving on, Elaine, apologies.
I'll come in, Chair, if that's okay. So we have apologies from Fiona, Ralph, and as James mentioned just before we started there, Billy McLean and Sarah Lavers as well. Perfect.
Okay, and then do we have any declarations of interest or transparency statements? I don't see anyone, I'm seeing shaking of heads. Okay, so then we move on to the minute of the last meeting. I don't propose to go through. Are we happy to approve the minutes? No one said no. Okay, and then we move on to the internal audit plan, and that's you, Karen.
Thank you, Chair. This is just the usual update report regarding the IGB's internal audit plan, which is progressing as planned. The strategic planning review has kicked off and is currently ongoing at the moment, and a review of the Code of Corporate Governance is planned for Q4. With regards to point 3.3 of the report on page 9, we undertake an annual exercise to ensure that all previous internal audit recommendations have been implemented, and I'm pleased to say that they have. I can confirm that. And also in relation to point 3.5 of the report, I will bring a revised training briefing schedule to the next meeting once I've collated all the knowledge and skills frameworks. That's really all I wanted to point out.
Okay, that's perfect, Karen, thank you. Good to know that all of the recommendations are up to date. We'll love to hear that, and I think it's sensible around the training given we've got several new members. Do we have any questions? Oh, Kath?
Not so much a question, just a thanks to Karen for the paper, and given new to the role in this committee, really value in 1.2 the work, the further programme of work that's ongoing to bring our knowledge up to speed, Karen, and for the group, and also the fact that we did it collectively, I think was very helpful as well in terms of hearing others' points of view. So look forward to more of that. Thank you.
Thanks, Kath. You take that away, Karen. A pat on the back. Okay, so are we happy to note the report? Okay, and then we move on to the summary of internal audit activity partner organisations, and that's you again, Karen.
Okay. This report just provides you details of the internal audit activity which has been finalised in either Greater Glasgow and Clyde Health Board by their internal auditors who are a private company, ASETS, and also in the Renfrewshire Health and Social Care Partnership by my own team, which I think IGB members may have an interest in. 2 audits were finalised in the Health Board regarding freedom of information and property transaction monitoring, and one of the properties disposed of was actually within this locality. And also in the Health Board, it was in the council, it was to do with the grants for adaptations. But you can see from the report, all the areas reviewed were, the controls were mainly adequate, and there was only a few minor recommendations made.
Thank you, Karen. Do we have any questions? I don't see anyone. Oh, Jacqueline.
Sorry, Lee, and Karen, I read it again, and maybe it's just because the detail's not there, but what was breached? I'm not sure whether it was people hadn't done the adaptations but taken the expenses, or had done something different from what was agreed. It's just out of interest. I don't think it goes into that level of
authorisation limits for authorising the amount. The person signing the actual paperwork saying, yes, we agreed to that, their authorisation limits wasn't as high as to some of the amounts that had been awarded. But it was mainly an error on their part. It was a manager that was authorising, but they didn't have the high levels, and they hadn't moved to the next level. But there was no doubt that the next in line manager had agreed that informally that the amounts could be awarded.
Right, thanks, that makes sense. Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Jacqueline. A good question, and also a question that was asked when we had it at council. So it's not just Stuart that was wondering. For members who aren't council members, often I see about half of these reports before they come to us, because I've sat in our audit committee there as well. So they're familiar, and understanding that crossover is always quite helpful, I think. Okay, so are we happy then to agree the report? And then we move on to the internal audit charter and mandate, and that's you again, Karen, and for members' information, we're looking to approve this. Karen wants us to approve it.
This internal audit charter and mandate sets out our role and our reporting lines in any organisation. And although the charter itself is reviewed annually by myself as part of the quality assurance work I do to make sure the team is we're undertaking things adequately. The last time the charter was formally reviewed was in June 2023, and there's been a lot of change since then. So the revised charter now takes into consideration the new global internal audit standards in the UK public sector. And the main changes are it provides a lot more detail on the role of internal audit and also my own role within the organisation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Karen. Do we have any questions? I'm not seeing anyone. I would just not. Oh, Jamie.
I did have one, but I think it's purely because I don't have anything to compare it against. So from my perspective, like, that looked really thorough, really robust. And I think it felt like, in terms of, if I thought about succession planning and things like that, anybody coming into that role would be incredibly clear about what the job was. So maybe one of my questions is about, do you have a sense, Karen, of what's the difference between where it was before that charter was put together and where it is now?
Basically, our operating practice haven't changed all that much, but basically we didn't give you as much detail into the role. We would maybe just say, you know, we carried out audit assignments, etc. But the new standards demand that we actually list everything out. So that's why, and I think it is more useful for members to see what we actually are involved in.
Thanks, Jamie. A good question. And Karen, obviously, having been on all the audit committees for it ever, it feels like I've seen the previous version, and I do think it details your role much more concretely. And I think that's important. It's maybe worth, for new members, just we can circulate the old one, if that would be helpful, so that you can see what it said before. And when we're doing papers that are updates for the next wee while, we could maybe do that, just so that newer members to the board who haven't been doing this for years get to see those things. Kath?
I'll send it round to all the new members, the previous one, if that would be helpful.
Perfect, Karen. Kath?
Okay.
Thanks, Lisa Marie. Thanks, Karen. Great paper. Really clear. My question is in relation to the periodic assessment in section 4 about the external quality assessments every 5 years. When was the last one, and when will we be expecting the next one to be, Karen?
The last one was done in 21-22, so it'll be 5 years from them, and it's usually done by another internal audit team. We have an arrangement with all the local authorities to save cost, basically, in bringing somebody privately in. Another authority internal audit service will come and quality assure our work.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thanks, those are great questions. If we have no other questions, I'll be happy to approve the charter and mandate. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we move on to the update on the risk register, and that'll be you, David.
Oh, yeah, thank you. So this paper really reflects the update that we provided at the last committee meeting, and that the risk and issue register is now more stable, with no new risks or issues added or changes to the scoring of the existing entries that are included. The most material change that we've made is in relation to risk 2, which is around financial challenges causing financial instability for the IJB. And that now reflects current uncertainty around changes to the grant aided expenditure calculations that are being made just now by the Scottish Government. So that calculation itself, it informs the allocation of around £2.3 billion worth of social care funding across Scotland. However, at this point in time, we don't know what the impact of the changes in the calculation will be. and whether or not there will be a positive or negative impact on social care funding for Renfrewshire. So we've reflected that in there. What I would say is that whatever changes happen is the Scottish Government is committed to using what's called the floor mechanism, where changes will be smoothed over a number of years to minimise or to reduce the in-year impact of any changes to funding. But we'll bring back further detail once we're aware of that. The committee is also asked to note that in the last risk update, we had said that we would review the risk management policy and strategy in early 2026. However, I've updated in the paper that in March 2024, we'd actually agreed that we would move to a 3-year cycle for reviewing the policy and strategy. So it's intended now that the full review will happen in early 2027. Having said that, though, the final point I'll just highlight is that the paper also reflects that further discussions have been agreed by the IGB for us to look at the risk appetite statements for the IGB in December, and we'll come back with an update on any changes that arise from those discussions at the next committee meeting as well.
Thanks, David. Do we have any questions or comments? Comments are welcome. Jack?
Yeah, a comment just reflecting what David was saying about risk appetite. I thought it was a really good development session that we had last time round, and I thought it was a really fair point that was made that, you know, what we said about our risk wasn't reflected in our actions, some of us, and certainly I've reflected on that. I think I also thought there was risks the other way, but I'm conscious of the fact that there was a higher risk, so I think it's important that we look at that. But I thought the development session generally was really positive, and it just made things a lot clearer for me in my head, so thank you for that.
Thanks, Jack. Kath?
Thanks. Yeah, just thanks for pointing to that, David. That was a kind of key point for me, in that we will discuss this as an IGB in December. I'm on another IGB, and this issue is really front of mind at the moment across Scotland. So Renfrewshire, we're not alone in that regard. So thanks to Francis and yourself and the team for bringing that forward in December. Thank you.
Thanks, Kath. David, I hope you take that to the team. We always take on board anything you're asked of, and it's appreciated. And I think pulling in that extra time in December to look at that is really important, partially because the mixture of people that sit on the board has changed, and risk appetite changes as your people change. I think it's really important that we update that. Okay, so if there are no other questions, are we happy to note the report? Okay, and then we have the IGB directions, and that's you again, David?
That's myself.
Francis this time.
Oh, Francis, are you getting a turn?
Thanks. I wasn't there at pre-agenda, so I think David picked it up then. Okay, so this is a standard annual report that's brought forward for oversight and awareness purposes, and that's in line with the statutory guidance and their agreed reporting arrangements. The report covers the period September 24 to September 25 inclusive, reflective of that agreed reporting cycle. The paper notes in section 1.2, the directions issued relate specifically to financial allocations and budgetary resources of the IGB. Section 4 of the report highlights the number of directions, so we had a total of 10 that were issued over the period. 9 of these went to both partner organisations, the Council and the Health Board, and 1 just went to the Council. Of these, 5 remain classed as open, and as noted in the report, they're subject to regular review prior to each IGB meeting. So you'll see in Appendix 1, there's a summary log of these with the detail for completeness, and it gives their status. What we would note is that some of them remain live for quite an extended period of time, and that reflects their lifespan. So, for example, the Refresh Strategic Plan, which runs from 2025 to 27. So that was really all, but happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Francis. Do we have any questions? I'm not seeing any. Okay, thanks for that, Francis. And are we happy to note the report? Yep. So then we move on to the Mental Welfare Commission visit to North and East Wards at Dykebar Hospital, and Jason is going to cover that. Jason, if you want to talk across the two papers because there's similarities, that's fine, and you can just pick up any specifics as we move on to the next paper to whatever feels most comfortable.
Okay, so I'll just take them as they come. The Men's Welfare Commission conducted an unannounced inspection of North and East Ward earlier this year, on 24th of June. North and East Ward are single-sex, hospital-based complex care wards for patients predominantly with a moderate to severe dementia. The visit resulted in 7 recommendations for improvement. These related to care planning, Newcastle formulations, staffing numbers, legal documentation, activities, and the ward environment. There was positive feedback from relatives who highlighted that they felt that the staff were amazing and they couldn't fault them, that they felt that the relatives were safe in the ward, and one highlighted the importance of being able to join their loved one during meal times. Some issues were highlighted by relatives regarding inconsistent staffing, changes to visiting arrangements and catering. However, it was acknowledged that these were being addressed. There's a number of examples of good practice highlighted. The Mental Welfare Commission noted that there were regular risk assessments, comprehensive getting to know me documentation, improved multidisciplinary meeting records, and improved legal documentation. There is one part in the report that wasn't noted when it was first published, but we feel it should be highlighted, that it mentions that there are 5 delayed discharges, or were on the day of the actual visit. Although the patients were fit for discharge, they were in the process of appeals, second opinions, or going through the choices meetings which determine appropriate care home placements. And due to all processes being incomplete, we would not consider these patients as delayed discharge at that time. In relation to South Ward, the Mental Welfare Commission conducted an announced inspection of South Ward on the 15th of July. South Ward's an adult admission ward. It's mixed sex, all single bedrooms, and it's also within the Glenafre unit alongside North and East Ward. The visit resulted in 6 recommendations focused on enhancing person-centred care planning, physical health management, risk assessments, legal documentation relating to medication, and the provision of written information for specified persons. Patients generally reported positive interactions with staff, feeling listened to and involved in their care plans, though experiences varied depending on the staff member, and there were occasional inconsistencies in the information provided to patients. Positive things that were highlighted included regular multidisciplinary meetings with active patient and family involvement, comprehensive documentation, access to advocacy and legal advice, a varied activities programme, and strong preparation for rehabilitation and discharge.
Thank you, Jason. Do we have any questions across both of the papers? Jacqueline.
Thanks for that, Jason. Lots of positives, as you say, so apologies if I'm dwelling on the negatives, the small negatives. I'm just, the thing about food always gets to me. I've raised this about care homes as well. I think it's so important, and I'm glad it's been resolved, because I'm thinking of the Milan principles and reciprocity, a difficult word to say, but I've managed it. And, you know, obviously if someone's liberty is taken from them for all the right reasons, it's important to get things like food right. So if you could tell me a wee bit more about that, and just that you're satisfied that that's been done. And the other point I was going to say was it was good to see that the psychologist is in place as well, because I think that's crucial in terms of a holistic approach to a person's well-being. And psychiatry's obviously got its place, but I think the two are needed for the holistic, realistic medicine approach. Thanks.
So with the catering, there are 2 parts to it. The first was around the actual provision in the wards. Due to the ward's structural environment, the wards were actually built as adult admission wards, but have been repurposed for hospital-based complex care. They're not ideal for this patient group due to having small sitting rooms. So the actual dining area is in the centre of the ward, That's something the Mental Welfare Commission felt wasn't ideal. It also meant that when meals were being brought in, they were being brought in trays, and there was a concern they may become cold by the time they came through from the kitchens. That's now being resolved by the use of portable bain-maries that have been brought into the wards, and we have created smaller canteen-style sort of sitting areas for some of the patients who are more ambulant, to give them a different environment for that. When it comes to the actual catering, what's provided, there is a larger piece of work being done across GGC in relation to the provision for longer term patients. Currently, the menu that's provided is a 2-week menu, and then it starts again. So that's not as suitable for longer term patients because there is that repetition of the meals. That has been recognised by Scottish Government as well, and there was a new paper that came out in the summer relating to meal provision, and that's been taken on by the catering department in Greater Glasgow and Clyde. So there are improvement activity going on just now, and that'll be across all areas. So that's still to fully come into place, but we're expecting that over the next 6 months.
Thanks, Jason. No, that's great. That's good to know. Thank you.
Thanks, Jacqueline. Kath?
Thanks, Jason. Just going back to the point that you raised about the delayed discharge, is there any opportunity to come back to the Mental Welfare Commission, just to have that conversation, even if the report can't be changed? Because I think that's a really important point, is like, we've got targets and we focus on the targets, but there's so much more complexity and nuance around all of that. Is there a chance for them to take that on?
We actually did. So we have a good relationship with our local inspectors. So I emailed our local inspector and informed them. They took it on board. They don't always agree with our opinions on things. They felt that would still be considered a delayed discharge, whereas we don't. So it's a slight difference of opinion.
Okay, thank you. And a supplementary on that, that is related to delayed discharge as well, and it's one of the positive findings I noticed about the clear evidence, section 5.1 of power of attorney and guardianship information, and so good to see that. And that message is coming through around adults with incapacity and all of that flow. So that was good to see. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks.
Thanks, Kath. Jamie?
Thank you. Jason, I might just be about to say a thing to you and you're going to go, welcome to the provision of services. But I'm looking at the bits in the report where it says, if somebody phones in sick, then suddenly your staff quotient is down, and then that's a difficulty. So the answer to that, of course, is to just have 3 additional members of staff on the shift kicking about, no bother. Then when it says this building is hugely unsatisfactory, it doesn't have windows, it gets too hot when that sunlight's there, and it doesn't look that good. The answer, of course, is great. Let's build a beautiful, purpose-built, well-designed, ergonomic space that everybody can feel great in. Those are the obvious answers to those issues. Those are not answers that are at your disposal. And I think in one hand, I'm not a commentary, I'm here, I'm a voting member of this IJB now, so grappling with that is actually part of the gig. So I think what I'm maybe just looking to understand is not say, why don't you just stick 3 extra new people on and build a new building? I think I'm just asking, what's it like when that's really clear in terms of the layout of what the issue is, but then the actual solution that's deliverable to that, as if there's only the solution, but the best case solution to that is just utterly out with your grasp. And I'm imagining that's felt on a ward, but also in planning and also in this space as well. So I think I'm just asking for your perspective on what that's like to deal with reports that say this is all totally inadequate, and you're like, this is it.
So the Mental Welfare Commission, following a visit, we meet with them directly after the visit for verbal feedback. As I mentioned, we have a good relationship with inspectors, and they themselves recognised that there's not much we can do about this. We can't have extra staff sitting about. We can't build new buildings. but they say that they still have to report this. I mean, we have put a lot of things in place to deal with staffing. We have twice daily huddles that allow us to deploy staff across the sites wherever the greatest need is. Our recruitment processes are really robust, and we have robust sickness absence processes as well. So we really work at it. We do as much as we can with the ward environment. We have put in a lot of dementia-friendly equipment and signage. And we put in things like we have what's called a pop-up bar in the male ward and a pop-up tea room in the female ward that gives it a display on the walls. So we do as much as we can with what we have. But yeah, it can become frustrating when we see the same, because these two in particular appear quite often in the reports we get across the wards.
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, it's Jason's correct, Jamie. When we've had reports about this before, it has been highlighted. I think what Jason's highlighting is the team do everything they can to make it more suitable, but you're right, we can't magic up new people on new buildings, much though we may wish we could. But no, thanks for that, Jason. And then Alan.
Thanks, Chair. Jason, it's great reports and great responses. I suppose this might be, you might not have an answer to this, but it's kind of a sort of honest interest in myself, and I don't even know if it's really appropriate from an audit perspective, but I think it is. There's a discussion there in relation to things like the additional sort of supports, and the one I picked up on was footballing memories. And I just wonder whether or not that was a kind of partnership involvement, because for me, something like this would be kind of reflective of audit and how the facility works. Does it bring in sort of other providers, and is there more of a sense of community around that? So I'm just interested from a personal perspective, but obviously maybe just in terms of the response to the inspectors as well, that shows that, you know, that there is there's a draw from other areas to support those who are within the facility.
Yeah, well, there is some of that. When it comes to the footballing memories, that was originally set up as partly community-based. So we took some of the patients to both Savon Park and Hampden, and they went, and there was footballing memories actually carried out in those areas. So it was the actual the football clubs that actually provided that in the community. We've then taken that back into the ward, and our occupational therapists provide footballing memories directly using old video footage, and they have some old football strips and things where they discuss it with. So there's a bit of a mix. We do bring in other sort of services. So we have therapeutes. This is where a local charity brings in actual dogs for the patients to meet. And they come in once a week. It's something that the patients really look forward to.
Thanks, Jason.
That's lovely, Jason. I think my background is in health and social care was before I became a counsellor, and I think particularly for people who have had pets long term, but then are in ward-based places where they might be there for quite a while, having that access to animals when it's been part of their life is really important. So I'm always really pleased to hear that there are therapet programmes going on. I just think they're lovely. I also just wanted to add to what Kath said around the really positive reports around most of the documentation. The documentation, particularly around restriction, and Jacqueline mentioned it as well, around restriction of freedom is something I would always pick up on. Again, having the background that I have, and I think it's so important that we're supporting people properly through that, and that everyone is allowed as much liberty as they possibly have, while they possibly can have, while they're in a setting where they may need a restriction for their own well-being. So I was really pleased to see that in the reports as well. I think it's crucially important. It's something that we all hold dear, so I think the fact that we can see that we're upholding that is really important. Thank you for the reports. Is everyone happy to note both reports? Yeah. Okay, so then we move on to for the remaining items. Is everyone happy that we agree to the exclusion of the press and public? Perfect. And Elaine, could you stop the recording?